Hey, Instagram and YouTube Live, Gordon Miller here. Okay, so I am going to take a look at the questions that were sent in earlier today, and I'm trying going live at different times to give everybody in different time zones a chance to, see which ones are work out best. So, all right, let us see what we got here. There you go. That's a little better. Okay. Instagram. Read the questions off of here. One good thing is that if we have a chance to, I will go live with some folks. Just chat one on one more, so that way we can get some other people involved in the discussion. It's always fun. I got one question already on Instagram through Instagram Live. So, let's see. Oh, a request to join me. Hang on a second. I'm going to answer the questions first. So, all right. So, first question today was how important was business etiquette in your journey? And so, and by business etiquette, I assume they mean just sort of the practical aspects of your business, professional business relationships, and treating people with courtesy and honesty and things like that. And it's a huge part of that, actually. So the uh, so regular business etiquette, always returning phone calls, always returning emails, making sure you follow up in a reasonable amount of time, and treating people generally with respect has gone a long way towards really setting the right tone for the relationship. I have one of my videos. I think it was like video 79 or 78 or something like that. It was talking about no relationship lasts forever, and the fact that let me see, I have the video number right here, 78. So video 78 on YouTube talks about the fact that no relationship lasts forever, whether it's a personal relationship, and even if you're married to somebody for 40, 50 years, the other person still eventually, one person typically dies before the other, sometimes years before the other. And so it's not a nihilistic view of the world. It's just a reality that, understand that relationships aren't necessarily meant to last forever, that, relationships are there to learn something and then move on. And that's true in business and in your personal lives. So, the great thing about having a decent professional relationship and adhering to the standard rules of etiquette, gives you an opportunity to be a good business partner and be a good relationship partner and things like that. So, any good or bad examples to illustrate this? Yeah. So, growing up, it used to frustrate me when people would call and you'd always get voicemail and nobody'd ever call them back and things like that. And I made it a point when we had our office set up in Blacksburg and we had lots of people. We were setting the phone systems up. I had the phones ring to everybody's desk, and you didn't necessarily have to answer it, but the phone system would go to voicemail after 5 rings, and so yeah, because you never knew who was in a meeting or who was tied up with something. The goal is that no phone should ring more than 5 times without somebody picking it up, and that I occasionally, when I was out of the office, I would actually call in, and if it rang to voicemail, I would be really upset because we should never be that busy. And today, because of being on Quora and on Instagram and on YouTube and things like that, my phone number is published out there. So my phone is set up that if you're not in my contacts, it just rings to voicemail. But that's after 27 years or so of just people being able to randomly call me. At this point in my career, the phone is there for me to be able to make calls and access information, not for people to have instant access to me necessarily. So, but no, good business etiquette is important. I always enjoy doing business lunches and taking potential clients out to lunch or dinner, things like that. and I don't mind going to see them in their location if they live in another city. I've visited New York City quite often. I enjoy it very much, and yeah, so it's been great. Um, so let's see. One of the next ones. Um, how has my understanding of money and business changed over the years, and how is it compared in the general knowledge the public is taught? It's a great question. So, the one interesting thing is when I started out, we started out with $5,000 that I had saved. I had paid 6 months worth of rent on our original office, which was like, I think we paid like $300 a month. It was a windowless room that was like 12 by 20, and nobody else wanted it. So it was the only suite available in the Corporate Research Center at Virginia Tech at the time. And so I was able to rent it for $300 a month. It was perfect size to get started. And so uh, paid rent for 6 months, about $1,800. Got business cards printed, paid for our connectivity to the internet, set up our servers and stuff like that that I had purchased, and we were off and going. So a grand total investment of about $1,200 in servers, $1,800 in rent, some legal and accounting fees and stuff like that, and I was off and running on $5,000, and we started closing business. And one of the first big projects we closed, we got paid like $10,000 over a 30-day over a 10-day period. So we were making about $1,000 a day. And so, pretty much in no time, we turned that 5,000 into 10,000. With the 10,000, I paid the other half of rent and our connectivity fees. I bought another server and spent another $5,000. Put the other $5,000 back in the business in other ways to help grow the business and those kind of things. So I started out with the relationship with money being running pretty much on a cash basis because we were working on a services business. And so in service businesses, especially with low overhead, as long as you don't have too many employees and things like that, we were able to acquire work, do the work, and make money. And eventually, as we began to grow, we began to borrow money. And so our relationship to money has changed over the years, and we've borrowed money and then closed big projects and paid it back, and things like that. And that cycle continues. About every 5 years, we'll borrow a sum of money, invest in these various activities that we have going on, and then we'll pay it back. And so that's been a great model in terms of being able to leverage it. I mean, we started by borrowing 50,000 when we first got about 5 years in, and that helped us close our Navy deal. Then we borrowed 100,000 and we closed our Army deal. Then we borrowed 150,000 and we closed our or maybe 250, I think it was. We closed our State Department deal, and then we just kept going. And we borrowed 500,000 and we closed our 10-year Health and Human Services contract deal. So there were lots of ways in which we've used money over the years and debt, effective debt, to begin to do that. So we've continued to have our relationship with money change as we went from keeping our overhead low and focusing on cash to borrowing money and growing the business. Now, as we've continued to kind of change and look at recurring revenue businesses, we brought down our expenses so that we have low overhead, low operating expenses, and relatively high margins on the deals that we're about to close. So we may have 50 to 80% gross margin in some of these opportunities. So with a lower overhead and bigger margin, it's a more sustainable long-term opportunity. So, as businesses grow and change, the relationship with money changes, and that's how ours has changed over the years. All right, let's see what the next question is. And these are questions that were submitted ahead of time. After I read these questions, I'm going to go back to Instagram first and then to YouTube and pick up the questions that were on there. If for some reason you aren't able to stay for the whole time, it'll all be on YouTube Live later, or on Instagram Live will be saved to my story. So let's see. So how do you build and maintain good relationships with people without coming across as those desperate Instagram gurus. Well, that's good. Well, for sure, not one of the desperate Instagram gurus, at least not yet. And I don't have a book to sell you. I don't have a program to sell you. I'm certainly not getting rich. If you want to book a call and do it on my website, you're welcome to. Mm. But there's no obligation to. If you want, 1 hour of one-on-one time, you can book it at gordonmiller.com and book an hour, and I'm happy to talk with you. So, I think building and maintaining good relationships with people without coming across as desperate, whether it's on Instagram or social media or not, is important. I mean, I think that you have to realize that if you're too focused on the money and you're too focused on, this opportunity has to close. I need this to close. So it's one of those kind of things where my father always had a saying, which was, "He who cares the least wins," it's so true. I'm really invested in the success for our clients, and I want to see our clients be successful. And in order to do that, it has to not be about me. It has to be about their success. And so that's what I've been doing. I make it about their success and about how I can help them, and it's been successful. My father always said that if you do the right things with the right people for the right reasons, the money will always take care of itself. And it's been a great strategy. It really has been. And I think you have to kind of have that strategy if you want to truly be successful. Okay, that was the last one of the posted comments that were posted before. I'm going to go to Instagram first and look through the comments, and then see where we're at, and then go to YouTube. Let's see. Is there any kind of marketing actually still left other than digital marketing? Yeah, sure there is. I mean, I think outdoor advertising, billboards, of course, those are all electronic as well. But when people used to drive to work back before coronavirus, it was a great way to be able to see people's ads, and I think they can be very effective. I think there's also traditional radio and other channels that are pretty good. Depends on what you're selling. Depends on if it's a local market type thing like a restaurant, or whether it's a online play or something like that. It just really depends. I'm going to college soon. How can I take advantage of all the networking opportunities there? Well, in case you haven't noticed, there isn't anybody at college. So, I'm not sure that going to college is going to be a thing, anytime in the near future. I would continue to get engaged in various social activities. There are either academic groups, student type organizations, or there are some professional fraternity organizations, fraternities and sororities. I think that some of those relationships are different based on where you're going and where you're from and things like that. But typically, there's professional societies and other types of student opportunities. But for sure, it's all about getting out there and meeting people, and having those people be part of your network. What's my favorite city in the USA? So I lived in Chicago for a period of time when I was working at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, the largest one of the largest architecture firms in the world at the time, responsible for, I think, more of the world's tallest buildings than any other firm. And Chicago is one of my favorites. My sister still lives there, and so I think Chicago is one of my favorites. New York is really amazing, but I would say probably either New York or Chicago. And if I had to pick between the two, if somebody really forced me, I house sat for a buddy of mine that was out of the country, and he lived at 81st and 3rd, and I just loved New York. I mean, I love the idea of going to every corner has a corner market on it, and you don't need groceries. You don't need a week's worth of groceries. You just buy groceries or eat out, or I ate at the restaurant right down the street. The restaurants were usually in the middle of the block. The markets and convenience stores were on the corners. I mean, it's pretty well engineered just from a city planning standpoint. I really loved it. It was great. So I would say New York. All right. Yeah, so I appreciate the comment about the watch. Not a real Daytona, not meant to be. Doesn't say Rolex on it. We're working with a group of Chinese companies that produce really amazing watches for a really low cost. And so before I look to do business with any of them, I always buy random samples. I pay for them myself. I don't let them ship me samples. I just buy them directly before reaching out to them, and then determine whether or not it's something that can fit within the profile of some of the things that I'm working on. So it keeps great time. It works great. Um, let's see. Sometimes I can't fathom the power of leveraging. Well, unfortunately, leverage is really what it's all about. I mean, leveraging your relationships and leveraging, all the opportunities that are out there is really kind of, or if you're talking about leveraging via financing, that's, unfortunately, leverage is really kind of where it's all about. So what do I think of TikTok? Well, I since I'm not a huge dance fan, lip sync or not, I think the last thing you all want to see me do is get up and dance. But I see it's being used by people giving advice more often. But I don't have a third phone to go live on TikTok at the same time. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not. I understand that's where Gary V says all the attention is, and things like that. Maybe I'll try going live on TikTok and see what it's like. But right now, I'm enjoying the Instagram Live and the YouTube Live format, and I appreciate the comments. I'm liking the feedback, and but we'll see. So, what brand of whiskey do I prefer? So, actually, I am a Yamazaki 18 year old kind of guy because, after all, who doesn't love an 18-year-old? No, I know that's horrible. So it's a good thing I'm not. I would get demonetized for that comment, but good thing I'm not making any money off my videos. But no, the 18-year-old Yamazaki is one that I've grown fond of. I also drink Johnny Walker Blue. I'm more of a vodka guy, but a buddy of mine introduced me to Yamazaki 18, and I even actually closed a deal with a company in Japan. It's getting so hard to find those bottles. They're about $500 a bottle, coming direct out of Tokyo. And I closed a deal for a representation deal, and they wanted to lower the commission rate. And I said they could lower the commission rate on one condition. Mm. And that was that they included two bottles of Yamazaki 18, and they were like, okay. And they called back like 3 days later before I had signed everything, and they're like, "Do you know how hard it is to find even one bottle of Yamazaki 18?" And I'm like, "Yeah, unfortunately, I do, but you're right there in Tokyo." So he's like, "Man, I would have rather given you the commission." I'm like, "Well, you still can if you like." So, but anyway. Do I need an insane work ethic for making business successful? Yeah, unfortunately, you do. I mean, it's just the way that it is. I mean, when I was coming up and getting things, really launched, I was working 16, 18 hours a day for. I calculated the other day. There was a period when I was in college and getting ready to go to grad school that I worked 16 to 18 hours a day, pretty much 5 days a week for the better part of 5 to 6 years, um, all through college, and beginning into high school, all of college, and the year I took off between college and grad school. And then when I started the company in '93, which was like 5 years later, then I did the same thing for like the next 5 years until 1998. 97, I went full time at the company. And then 98, when I met my wife, then I started to finally adjust my hours a little bit more. But, for 14 years of my 37-year professional career, I have worked, 16, 18-hour days. And unfortunately, a strong work ethic, just getting there and getting it done, is 90% of the effort. So, do I compromise my health for my entrepreneurial journey? No, never. You still have to be able to live and survive and things like that. You said you've lived in Chicago. Do you think it's good to live and work in different places throughout your career? Yeah. So, Stefan, thanks. The, uh, it's I believe that that's a great idea. In fact, if I had it to do over again, I would have not gotten married till I was 30 because I didn't meet my current wife until I was 33, and she was 31. But I got married at 27 and divorced at 30. I would have actually probably traveled the world and figured out, had some different experiences working for different people. Probably would not have stayed in one place. And I would definitely have done that. I think that the experience is definitely, and that's why I'm not a real estate guy. I don't think that real estate is a good investment. I think it ties up a lot of money. You got to put 20, 25% down these days if you want to qualify. And if you want to buy a decent house, it's going to cost you $500,000 or more, some places almost a million. And that's just a lot of money to tie up in a house. And then you're locked down to it. You can't just sort of pack a bag one day and move to another city or another country. And so I think it's a horrible thing to get too tied down before you're 30. So anyway, so thanks for the Instagram comments. I'm gonna go over here to YouTube and I'm gonna scroll through those. So let's see what we got here. All right. Since quantum computing is in its infant stages, how can I get into working the industry through creating a business as a college student next year at a top public school, i.e., what should I study? So, quantum computing's been around for a long time. I started three labs for Virginia Tech. I worked on the architecture computing lab as a graduate student. I helped co-found the lab for scientific visual analysis, and then I was offered the opportunity for my own lab for the multimedia lab at Virginia Tech, where I was the director for 5 years. And the guy who came to work for me actually took my job at the university when I left, and was there for 5 to 10 years on his own. I think it was about 10 years, and they were getting into quantum computing when he went back. So that was 25 years ago, and one of the biggest large scale computing systems in the world was built with 1,000 CPUs of Apple generated stack or server rack units, and I think it was one of the 10th fastest computers in the world. And quantum computing is really becoming a thing just because of the massive calculation power and things like that. It's sort of an arms race of technology. But I would get involved in the research projects there at whatever major university. It's a great way to get involved as a student. Most of the guys who run the program ended up starting their own companies and have done pretty well. So I would definitely do that. But get involved in something from the universities. Let's see here. Uh, okay. What was the worst business model you ever came across? Uh, Worst business model that became profitable but shouldn't have. So the worst business model that I ever came across was the one where a group of 20 somethings, 21, 22, 23-year olds, there were three of them, and they were friends from college, and they wanted to do this multi-billion dollar deal, and they need 100 million in cash to put down on this development to buy the land and to go under contract with the development. Of course, they had never done any large scale real estate development, and there was no research done as to whether or not this anybody even wanted some kind of large mega structure where they wanted to put it. So it was hilarious. I mean, um, as far as things that ended up becoming profitable that shouldn't have, there are a few. I mean, I was critical of the original Amazon model for the longest time, and it wasn't really until Bezos diversified with Whole Foods and other things with actual cash flow. I mean, I think Amazon. I don't know that Amazon actually shows a profit yet, but I know for the longest time it didn't. I mean, everybody's ownership of Amazon and the valuation and everything was based on just purely on speculation and on paper. So there was just paper value of that. I'm not sure how you value a company at hundreds of billions of dollars that makes $0 in profit, but it's that's just the way the math works on valuations and things like that. So, but I think that once that Bezos diversified that and investors started being able to see actual revenues that were going to start heading in the right direction, I think that I think it'll do okay. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right. Um, Gary Vaynerchuk, you like him? Is he really what he shows us? Well, so you know, I don't I don't know Gary. I mean, I know I watch his content. At least I have up until recently. I mean, um, I get the whole idea of um, you enjoy going to yard sales and finding $400 worth of Hot Wheels cars, in the bin for $50 or something like that. I tell you what, Gary, if you see this video, then wherever we are, 26 minutes in, even on YouTube, I have two whole containers of Hot Wheels cars. You're welcome to come by at $50 a piece, drop $100 on my front porch, and I'll give you the two containers of cars. They're the what, like 11-gallon containers each or whatever. So they're there's hundreds of cars. I'm sure there's some valuable stuff in there, but so I don't understand his focus on some of the content here recently. I like Gary, and I respect what he's done, and I've purchased all of his books. I've read them all, and I think that he offers some sound advice, and his message has gotten a little. It got a little shifted here recently, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, he continues to change his message and evolve his perspective on things, so that's great. So the let's see what else we got here. But I like Gary. Gordon streams. Yep, I do. I've been streaming YouTube Live, all the Instagram and YouTube Live sessions, except for one YouTube session which failed to upload. And so, but all of them are on YouTube and they're there by date, so you can give a listen. Hey Gordon, can you give us your take on this? Are bankers more important to society or garbage collectors? Which produce more economic output and value in all? I'm gonna take the bait on your question and assume that the answer is garbage collectors, because when they go on strike, I've seen how the garbage piles up in New York City, and between burning that stuff and recycling it and things like that, I'm sure that garbage collectors probably create more actual value than bankers. So let's see. It's a good idea to just replicate a famous SaaS product and try to gain some of their market and see where it goes, if we're out of new ideas. No, unfortunately, the problem with doing that is that everybody just assumes that if you build a better product, people will end up using your product. The problem is that most people have made a significant investment in the other product and either have customizations or other plugins or other things that they've done to leverage their investment in that platform. There's relatively few examples where somebody would actually go to the trouble of switching platforms. It's almost, even if you gave your product away for free and it was a lot better, the customizations that they would have to do to really take advantage of it is, in order to fit how it's being used in their business, is just not enough to allow you to break into that market. So that's a terrible model. So how has COVID-19 affected my wealth? Well, the biggest impact so far is that we have like literally 3 or 4 projects we've been working on for the last 2 years. And one was supposed to go live on April the 1st, and one was supposed to close in my meeting in March in New York City, and be followed by an opportunity for me to go to Singapore. And in LA and other places like that to continue to move that deal forward. So, two of our largest deals have been interrupted in because of the lockdown. I mean, and there's nothing other than the artificial confinement of every human on the planet that's keeping us from moving forward. So we had plans here where everything was going to fall into place in March and April, and we would be making money by July 1. And unfortunately, with the delay in the lockdown, it's delayed the projects, and we don't know when I'll be able to. I mean, whenever it's safe to fly to Singapore or even fly out to LA, I'll be able to start working on one of the projects. But it's annoying. I mean, it isn't. It has delayed making money. It hasn't necessarily affected existing projects one way or the other. So most of the software stuff we do, we work remotely on anyway. So um, let's see here. So I'm still working through my YouTube comments, and I'll get to the Instagram comments here in a minute, guys. Um, who is my favorite on Shark Tank? Well, I think I've been pretty clear about this. I have a huge respect for Mark Cuban, and I would actually like to see Mark Cuban become president. I don't necessarily think that he would take the pay cut to do that, but I like his style. I mean, if America wants an outspoken egomaniac as president, I think they just picked the wrong billionaire egomaniac as president. I think Cuban would have made a great president. And I don't think we would have had any of this shit that we're dealing with right now if Mark Cuban had been president. So Mark is an amazing guy. I have a lot of respect for him. I look forward to the opportunity, hopefully one day, to meet him. But he is a fantastic guy, and I think he adds some real heart and some real intelligence to the show, and I appreciate that. Do you use apps to buy stocks like Robinhood? What do you think about them? And do you use some agent? No, I do not use an agent. I trade my own stocks. I do use one of the platforms, but I'm not going to say which one because I don't want my account to be compromised. But I did sign up for Weeble, and there is no link in the description where you can get your 2 free stocks. So, if Weeble wants to add me to their affiliate network, they can reach out. But I did, use Weeble just because I wanted to see if I really would get 2 free stocks and see if I would take $100 challenge on depositing $100 and see if I can get a stock worth more than that. I got 1 free stock so far for $12, or no, for $2. So then I made my deposit, but it's taking forever. They say it takes 3 to 5 business days for the transfer to go through. So, it's crazy, but it is what it is. Let's see here. Uh, let's see. Favorite philosophers. So I am a huge fan of Xuanzi, so also known as Sun Tzu, which is the real Chinese pronunciation, I believe, is Xuanzi. But so Sun Tzu is the original writer of The Art of War, 6th century BC general, I believe. And I own 27 different translations of various versions of the book. I'm a huge fan, and he is not one of your traditional philosophers. I guess I would be more of a, I mean, I've enjoyed everything from Socrates and Plato and Aristotle to Descartes and others. So it doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I enjoy the different, Carl Jung, especially that Jordan Peterson is fond of pointing to, and things like that. So, I mean, I enjoy the perspectives that each of them have to offer. So, no one philosopher in particular. Please recommend someone for improving my sales skills. So I said this on one of my other videos, and if you really want to improve your sales skills, you need to go back to the original sales techniques in the original sales books from the 1950s and 60s. Zig Ziglar, Ziggler, I guess. But Zig Ziglar was, has an amazing book on sales. The techniques are still pretty much the same. They've changed a little bit for the digital age, but so let's see here. But I would definitely recommend Zig Ziglar. What are your biggest mistakes? One, financial; two, emotional; three, health; four, spiritually; and five, educationally. All right. Well, I think my biggest financial mistakes was trusting some of my partners in various ventures. I mean, I've had partners screw me out of, $300,000 deals where I invested a great deal in something and then they screwed me out of it. And I had a partner here recently embezzle $800,000 from a $15 million contract or $10 million contract. And it's amazing what people try to get away with, but it's so I would say that trusting the people that I go into business with too much and having them end up screwing me over was probably led to some of the financial mistakes I would love to have undone. Emotional mistakes, I think I tend to like to be in a relationship, and I think that led to me not really listening to my emotions and getting married the first time. I really didn't want to get married. I really didn't even want to propose. We've been dating for 4 years or 3 years, and it was just one of those kind of things where and my ex-wife was like, even uh, before I proposed, she was like, "Well, look, we've been dating for like 3 years. It's either time to get married or break up." And I was like, "Man, I had a 50-50 chance there too." So I guess I should have phoned a friend. But anyway, it was pretty funny. But I think that staying in a relationship too long is certainly the mistake that I regret, not listening to my emotions for that. Number three, the biggest health mistake was really allowing myself to gain the kind of weight that I have and not be part of it. Now, I've gained a lot of my weight loss. I mean, I lost 65 pounds. I've gained over 30 of it back over the COVID-19 lockdown just because I don't have access to my gym. I mean, when I was swimming every day and things like that, I was at a good regimen going and I was doing well. So I look forward to getting back there. I can't really do anything about the lockdown, but not addressing my weight gain earlier in my health cycle probably would have been my biggest health mistake. Spiritually, I think not uh, not listening to my wife earlier in our relationship. I waited till we met in 1998, and I waited until 2012 to change from the Episcopal Church where I grew up to the Catholic Church, which is where she had been. And the conversion really made it a huge impact on our family and on my life and things like that. So I really wish spiritually, I wish I had made the conversion earlier. I think it would have made a huge difference in my life in a lot of ways. So, and educationally. So educationally, as I've written about before, I did all my PhD work, but I didn't get a chance to get my dissertation done in time. So I was working at the university, and I was working at the university, and I was um, got somebody trying to continually call me here. So, um, so anyway, the I had I was working at the university and I was also starting the company and also taking my classes. And so the problem was is that I couldn't do all three. I mean, there just wasn't enough hours in the day, and I let the 7 year time expire. And so now, if I wanted to finish my PhD, I'd actually have to start all over again. So that's my biggest concern. My biggest regret from that is just letting it go. Okay, so let's see if we can finish up some questions here. 26 years old, have $15,000 in savings. What would be your action plan to accumulate wealth in the current environment. So I would do some research. Oh, what do I think of James Altucher and Jason Lemkin? I don't know them. I don't follow them other than knowing that James is, the guy from Quora. I don't really know much about those guys. Uh, so 26 years old, 15,000 in savings. I would definitely start investing it, even in this economy. I think that the S&P 500, an index fund of the S&P 500 or the Dow will go a long way, and it'll recover eventually. It's a long-term play. Love your Quora answers, big fan. Thank you very much. Uh, what do I think about Seneca? Uh, is that a stock or I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Seneca is. So, what do you think about SAP as a company? Done with so SAP is just too monolithic. The amount of money that people spend implementing SAP is ridiculous. So I don't see how in the world anybody can justify the return on investment. With recent rumors around North Korea, do you think unification would be beneficial to the economy of a unified Korea? Yeah, you know what? I do, but I tell you what, I like Kim's sister as the likely successor. I don't know if that would actually happen. I think his brother is not really well suited to that. The father passed over the brother in favor of Kim Jong Un, and I think his sister would actually be the one to lead the country. And she might even, I don't know if she has any interest in leading it towards unification or not, but I think she's a hell of a person. I think I think you have to look at that. That would be fantastic. I mean, so let's see. Uh, how often do you see people get in their own way when it comes to becoming successful? Yeah, so the biggest problem that I see that people aren't more successful is because they give up too soon. I think that people talk themselves out of being successful. They're like, oh, I don't think I can do it. Oh, man, I'm such an idiot. Or oh, I missed that opportunity, whatever. It just, cut yourself a break. I mean, it's a learning process like anything else. I mean, are you going to make mistakes? Sure. Is it going to cost you money or other people money? Probably. Is it the end of the world? No. I think it's an opportunity for you to learn from your mistakes. And I frankly wish I had made more mistakes early on, and I think I would have learned more. Let's see. Let's see if we can wrap up these questions. What's your opinion of the Swedes' response to the virus? Too lax or just right? So uh, I think the Swedes are doing fine. I am actually for complete open up every country and let everybody get this who's going to get it. So I just do not think it's worth destroying the global economy. We've never done this before. I don't know why we're doing it now. So, do I write a daily journal? No. These are what sort of is a replacement for that. So, today we have so much information. Therefore, what 1 to 3 resources, online courses, books, YouTubers, etc., do you recommend for young adults to become good in personal money management and investing? So, in terms of personal money management, um, in terms of personal money management and investing, I think that Dave Ramsey, we use the envelope system with our kids about what to save, what to spend, and what to give, and being able to invest and things like that. And so, I think that Dave Ramsey is one. Everybody should really strive to live debt free. And there's some other good ones out there. I the Robert Kiyosaki book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and the quad chart for employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. That quad chart really kind of changed my life. I mean, it really opened my eyes to what I had done was I had started a company, but I had created a very high-paying job for myself, and I was essentially just self-employed. And I shifted in 2004 to become more of a business owner, and then shifted in 2008 to become more of an investor. And I wouldn't have done that without that book. So I think those two are good ones. Um, so let me see here. I'm going to go back to Instagram and try to catch up on some of the comments there. Love Gary. He recently told a 35-year-old delivery driver that he has as long as he's happy and it's all that matters. Didn't tell him once he wants to start a family or has an emergency. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's everybody wants to be happy, but if you don't have any money, you're not typically going to be pretty happy. So his happiness can't be used as currency. Yeah, you can't pay your rent with happiness. So, will California maintain its economic power? Well, California was broke before all this, so I don't know what kind of economic power it has anymore. Um, it's hard to stay protective at home in front of your family. You keep a different persona at work and while you're alone, do you think? Not for me. I mean, if you guys were to show up here and hang out here in my office, or show up and have dinner or whatever, you'd find I'm exactly the same in person as I am on camera. I'm not any different. And there are a lot of people I think that create an on-screen or online persona, but I'm not one of them. What would I? Why would you advise people to do an MBA? I didn't. I don't think I've ever advised anybody to do an MBA. I don't think that it's unless you're going to work for one of the big 10 accounting firms or something like that. I don't think it's necessary. So, all right. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, my master's is so the question is, what is my master's degree in? I have a bachelor's of fine art and design, and my master's is in architecture because it was the best combination of engineering and art and design that use computers. Back in the 80s, in the early 80s and mid 80s, the engineering was still about specifying beam depths with a spreadsheet. So engineering had not really moved to the engineering and design component yet. It didn't do that till the mid 90s. And so architecture was way ahead with three-dimensional visualization, a bunch of other stuff. So I chose to focus on it. And then my PhD work was in human factors engineering. And my specialty was interface design and workflow optimization. Which are some of the books which have influenced you the most and you'd suggest others to read? So, Suman, on YouTube, there's two videos which you can do a search on Gordon Miller books, and you should find or just look through my profile. They're early in the process. They're like videos like 19 and 20 or 20 and 21 or something like that, and they're the 40 books. They're in two parts, so I do 20 and 20. And out of the 250 books that I read, those are the 40 that I think people needed to read the most. So I've got about 12 minutes left before the Instagram thing is going to cut off because it limits everybody to an hour these days. Um, let's see here. Go back to YouTube. So can't be serious about having everything open. Unfortunately, Ernest, I am deadly serious, and I don't mean that to be a pun. I believe that I do believe that there would be potentially a higher number of deaths. But as I had said in my other video, there's this huge spike. They were talking about flattening the curve. The problem with flattening the curve is all you do is flatten the demand curve. The actual number of people who die stays about the same. So when they flatten the curve, it spreads out the number of people that die over a longer period of time. So they never said that it was, flattening the curve was going to do anything except reduce the spike demand on hospitals. And right now, hospitals are at 25% capacity in most places. So, there's plenty of capacity to deal with people who are going to get this. People who are going to get this are going to get it. We are not going to eradicate this off the face of the earth. Everybody's going to eventually get it. And like other viruses, which we don't have a cure for yet. I mean, herpes simplex virus 1, HSV1, which is transmitted through sexual intercourse, and HSV2, there's not a vaccine or anything or any kind of thing for that. Thankfully, it's not deadly, but 75% of people have gotten it by the age of 50. Thankfully, I'm one who hasn't, but and it is non-destructive. It doesn't kill you. It doesn't even complicate your life, but so much. But the reality is that there is no. I don't think there's any reason to believe we can completely eradicate this virus. And so, hiding from it by staying inside and staying away from everybody and destroying the global economy in the meantime does not make any sense at all. I mean, you don't have to you know have a PhD in mathematics and medicine and virology in order to realize that all we're doing is ripping that band-aid off slowly, and we're just extending the pain out further and further. And I think that's the wrong way to do this. I just do. I mean, you guys can hate me, and I love hate comments anyway, so run with the hate comments. I'll do a reaction video to all the hate comments. How about that? So, back to the topic of North Korea. Did you watch The Interview, a movie about the whole dilemma with similar ending? Yeah, I did. I've seen that. And you just wished to happen about Kim's sister taking power. Oh no, I didn't see that. I mean, I maybe I remember seeing the movie, but that's interesting. I mean, I'll have to take a look at the edit again. Is Quora's partnership program viable to Quora? It seems strange for them to be paying so much money. Um, I don't think the interview's ending is very similar to what might ever happen in reality. So, in terms of Quora's partner program, they're paying people to write questions so that those questions can show up in search results in Google. So basically, what Quora is doing is it's buying top of mind search visibility for its answers by paying people to write questions, which would attract search engine results. And I get that as a business model. I do. They're basically trying to make sure that and that's how I found Quora in the first place back in December of 2016. Hmm. So I completely understand the process, and I get it. I do. So so let's see. Um, Biggest weakness of India is nationalism, not Indians. Yeah, so biggest weakness of India, Indians. Yeah, so uh, let's see, hang on a second. With all the artillery hidden in the mountains pointed towards Seoul, I wouldn't quite put my bets on the events of the interview playing out. Yeah, I'll have to watch the movie again. I don't remember it. Um, Biggest weakness of India is Indians. So the biggest weakness of India is probably nationalism because they're the a majority of people would like to support the government, and the government seems to be willfully ignorant of the reality of all of the things that I've mentioned, which are issues that India needs to focus on. So I think that as soon as the government of India becomes intellectually honest about India and what they need to do and starts addressing it, then I think that it'll be better. Do you think AI will replace human jobs and government will restrict it? Uh, I don't think the government's going to restrict AI, but I do believe that right now there are jobs that people can get that if you have an IQ below 85, which normal is 100. If you have an IQ below 85, it's very difficult to get a job. There isn't much you can do. Even emptying trash bins and things like that, becomes a little more difficult to teach somebody how to do. So below 85, there isn't a whole lot you can do. By the time you get up to 100 and 105 and 110 and 120 and 125, I think AI is going to push the jobs humans do higher and higher in that scale, which means that there are more and more people down in the range which are not going to be able to be employed. And I'm concerned about what does that mean for everybody else in terms of how they're going to, what is everybody going to do? Right now, the number one job in terms of numbers and effect on the economy and things like that is the job of driver. If you're below 100 IQ, it's the number one job below 100 IQ. So we have automated vehicles that are going to take the place of humans, over the next 10 or 15 years. And so when that happens, you're going to end up with, what do all those people below 100 IQ that have all those jobs right now, what are they going to do? It's not a whole lot. So, it's pretty tough. So let's see. Um, Everybody is going to eventually get it, unlike other viruses, which we don't have a cure for yet. Yeah, I think everybody's eventually going to get COVID-19. I mean, I just think that, um, it's highly communicable. And I just don't think that there's much that, much that anybody can do about getting it and or not getting it. I just think it's inevitable. I think I had it. I think I had COVID-19 back on January the 14th, and I suffered for 3 agonizing weeks until about February the 7th, and it was awful. I mean, it was probably the sickest I've ever been, and and just when you think you beat it, it comes back and kicks your ass like you wouldn't believe. So it is something. So I just think that we should be intellectually honest about that. So can I share my daily routine? Okay, I'll do that because some of these other longer ones, it'll take me some time to go back and read through this. Um, your analysis is very insightful. Thank you. Um, share my daily routine. So yeah, I usually get up about 6 a.m. and feed the dogs, and I go through social media in the morning. I've gone live, 6:30 in the morning Eastern time, -4 GMT right now, and so it's been fun. I get things organized. I typically start my mornings with reaching out to my partners in the UK or in other parts of Europe, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's getting to be 9 o'clock in the evening in parts of Asia. So, when we're actively working on stuff, I can get up at 6, and people are still actively going on in Singapore and Jakarta and things like that. So, I get to talk to some of those folks, and then but most of my meetings start at 10 o'clock. I usually schedule hour-long meetings from 10 to 11, or 10 to 11, 11 to 12. And then I'll do lunch between like noon and 1 or noon and 2, depending on whether it's a business meeting or whatever. And then my meetings are either 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And I try to keep from 3 to 5 open for different things in case I need to run errands or do something. And also if I'm done with something by 3 or 4 o'clock, I can get something done before I'm home at 6. Usually it's dinner at 6 with the family, and the hey Henry, how you doing? And usually I'm home by 6 o'clock. Have dinner and get the house cleaned up. Spend some time with the kids. Hang out with the family from like 7 until about 9, and then from 7 till 9, kind of just chilling, reconnecting with everybody. And about 9 o'clock, I'll start checking in again because it'll be like 9 o'clock in the morning in Asia if something's going on. And I'll work from like 9 until 10. And then for 10 o'clock, I'll get ready for bed and spend some one-on-one time with my wife as we, head upstairs about 10 and in bed by 11 and up by 6 o'clock. And so I try to get 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And so it works out pretty well. So my days are pretty much like that. So what's cracking? Hey, man. So I've got less than a minute left on Instagram. So I'm sorry for you folks on Instagram. Will Trump be reelected for a second term? God, I fucking hope not. So, I had hoped that we might see some draining of the swamp and some real fiscal discipline and things like that from the president. Instead, we get the idea that injecting yourself with Lysol is something we might should study. You know what, Mr. President? I'm no longer interested in voting for you, and I'm actually no longer interested in seeing you be president. I wish we could find some way to, to have some kind of referendum to remove this guy as president, but the best way to do that is the ballot box. I mean, giving everybody a basic minimum income, is not the way to solve this. We're throwing away trillions of dollars, and this president has done more to destroy this country economically in the last 60 days than any other president. All right. Well, there goes the folks at Instagram. So let's see. Um, all right. Go back through the questions here. I'll pick up the long questions here because I know that there's. All right. So, one of two, I think you're confusing the amount of people getting infected with people dying. Flattening the curve is to avoid overload, which causes more deaths. Also, wouldn't a massive pandemic cause economic fallout? Independently, a consensus of economists would agree stay the quarantine rather than herd community. Actually, it's herd immunity is the right term. And I'm not a virologist or an economist, but I know if we continue to keep the country closed, everybody is going to die economically, and so. Might not have the time to read this during live, but I hope you get the chance to read this. U Chicago survey among economic regarding the economy. Well, thanks. I appreciate the link, and Ernest, I'll go back and look at it. Again, flattening the curve isn't about the number of people dying. It's about the number of people needing medical attention at the same time, overwhelming the resources. But everywhere except New York City and a couple other places, there's more than enough capacity to deal with any need. Of course, that's probably because we're all being sheltered in place. Um, so anyway, can you share my daily routine? I did. There's no guarantee you won't get corona again after you've had it once. There's also no, if there is an antibody test that works, then and antibodies work the way they typically work, then you wouldn't get reinfected. But there has been dispute over whether or not, whether or not you can get it again. And the reinfection rate early on, where people had recovered and then got it, certainly was there. That was a reality. So, concept of physical university will die. Yeah, I think we're getting to the point where the concept of a physical university is long outlived its usefulness. I have COVID-19. Did you get a test done? No, I haven't had an antibody test at this point. I'm on lockdown with everybody else. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to spend $189 to see if I had it. And the tests that are available now are so unreliable that the government is getting their money back from the people who provided the test to them. So, there's no reason to take a test, have it be positive or negative, and then have it be unreliable. So there's no reason to go to the trouble of all that. I was also confused about the 25% of hospitals filled figure. Right at a large part of the world is scrambling for more capacity. Here in Germany, the Bundeswehr, our military, is having to help out. Yeah, no, I mean, demand is different all over the world, but understand that in most states here in the United States don't have these kind of hotspots, and that there are hospitals all over the country that have relatively few COVID-19 patients. So, just out of curiosity, have you experienced any burn-in on your TV with it being on constantly in the background? If no, could you share the brand? Yeah, sure. It's a Vizio, and it's an LED TV. So LED TVs don't have burn-in. Hmm. If it was an LCD TV, then it would, and it's in a full 4K LED TV that it has full 4K resolution. So I use it as a 4K monitor, and it's like what 38 inches or something like that. So it's pretty amazing. I love it. It does. It's basically four 1920 by 1080 screens all at the same time. So I love it. It's great. All right. Um, just out of curiosity. Okay. Oh my God, it's Gordon from Quora. Yep, that's me, man. And a YouTube video. Yep. So, yeah. So the YouTube videos. This will be video 132. So there's a bunch of videos out there. So, yo, Gordon, what's cracking? Now, my knees these days. Gordon, we put out a delivery service like Uber Eats already, taking orders. My business partner does the logistics, and I've done the IT part. My question, okay, should we grow slowly and grow it up or look for investors? Well, it depends. I mean, if you have an app that's working, and this is the age of delivery services, I mean, DoorDash and Uber Eats are offering pretty substantial value and with no delivery fees. So I'm not sure how you're going to compete with that. It would really depend on an analysis of where you guys fit in your market niche and how to do that. But Henry, if you want to schedule a call to discuss it in more detail, you can go to gordonmiller.com and go to book online, and you can book a session, and we'll do an hour-long call and talk about it. I mean, I'm happy to take a look at the analysis. It's pretty simple, and we should be able to get taken care of in an hour. So, who should be your choice for political office? Who would be your choice? Right now, anybody other than the current president of the United States will work for me. What kind of person you like to hire, and your review of Peter Thiel book 0 to 1. So I like Peter. Peter is was on Quora when I first got there. He and David Rose were part of the reasons why I hung around there, and I like him. I like the book, and but yeah. So I don't have any. In terms of people that I like to hire, I go based off of personality and the interview and things like that. So it really is hard to say. Do you have any good day trading strategies? No, I don't day trade. You stick 1,000 a month or more into an index fund of the Dow and the S&P 500 in a no-load mutual fund and let it sit there for 40 years, and don't try to outsmart the market. That's the data is on my side on that, and I don't think it's worth trying to pay commission brokers to try to figure out how to outsmart the market only to barely cover whatever the differences you might make. So, what would you do if I were president of the United States? Would I choose Mark Cuban as vice president? Yeah, no, I don't think that's funny. I don't think Mark Cuban would like to be vice president of anything. I certainly would vote for Mark Cuban for president right about now. And and in fact, if we have an emergency election, maybe we can get him in there before the end of the month. But for me, I just I'm a little tired of Trump was a decent um, TV character, and I guess when he was given something decent to read off the teleprompter by writers with a clue during his various things, and when he was talking to people on the campaign trail about the talking points, I think he connected with a number of people. I just don't think he's a very effective communicator. And I think when you have people, I was not a huge fan of Barack Obama whatsoever. But the man went to Harvard. Harvard Law, by the way, was head of the Harvard Law Review and stuff like that as well. Amazing communicator, amazing guy. So when things were bad, he could deliver the message in a way that made you say, you know what, okay, I'm good. I'll accept that. And I just don't think that we have a very coherent communication strategy right now, and I think that that's hurting everybody. I'm not a huge fan of the way things are going, just because. it just is so chaotic. I mean, they're not even social distancing on the platform when they first required everybody else to social distance. So, it's the president refused to take a test to see if he had COVID-19, so he could have been positive and spreading it to everybody on the stand. So, it's interesting. So, but I mean, I have nothing against the president. I wish him well. It's a hard job, but I don't think that this has been handled very effectively. I think you either need to shut the entire country down for a period of time, everything shut down. Emergency food delivery only, and that's it. And and like arrest people, or just shoot on site orders for people violating the lockdown. 30 days, 45 days, we'd be done. 5, 6 weeks. Everybody stay at home, or you're gonna wish you had, and it would be over. But we didn't do that. We like half-ass shut everything down, and what was essential ended up, or what was non-essential ended up being nail salons, beauty parlors, and massage parlors. I'm not sure how that's the only thing that made the list, and it ended up destroying all the restaurants. So I don't know. I mean, I don't, nobody's got to pay their rent because courts are closed, and nobody can take anybody to court to evict them. So, I'm just saying that, if we're going to do this, we should have left the country completely wide open and let this burn through the population like a wildfire, or we should have just shut everything down. And I think doing this half-assed is responsible for losing a lot more lives in the long run. I just think that it's going to drag on and drag on and drag on, and people are going to be sort of chronically unemployed, and we're going to spend trillions of dollars the country doesn't have. I don't see this ending well for anybody. So, anyway, let's see what else we got here, because thankfully YouTube doesn't provide me a limit. I can keep on going. So, I've got some stuff I need to do though at 3:30. So I'm going to wrap this up here in the next few minutes. Um, let's see. College, what should I focus on? Whatever you enjoy. Hopefully something that pays well. What's my opinion on France trying to tax Google? I don't know. I mean, I try to stay out of. I mean, I thankfully I don't live in France. It doesn't affect me. And If you wanted to have a meeting with Bill Gates, Elon Musk, or Jeff Bezos, how many people would you have to go through to get to them for the average person? It's 6 contacts. Well, I know a couple people that I think could probably get me uh, any of those 3 meetings in 2 phone calls, but that's because of my network. I mean, um, I know folks that are in the private equity space that are billionaires that uh, likely know somebody who is also in the billionaire club that could reach out to somebody they know that then in turn knows them. So, but so happy to have face to go with the writing on Quora. Well, thanks, Cyril. I appreciate that. When I was a graduate student, estimating and interpreting distributed lags topped the distributed lags top the agenda of macroeconomists and other applied economics. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to have the long tail effect is going to be pretty awful for this. Review of Y Combinator and Paul Graham. And Do you read his essay? I don't read Paul Graham's essay. Y Combinator has been a powerful force in offering opportunities to entrepreneurs. So, practical men who believe themselves to be exempt from intellectual influence are usually the slaves of some defunct economist. Yeah, that's probably true. Much respect for your content because you got zero BS. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And also, Gaurav, thank you for the respect. I appreciate that. I try to keep it real. I enjoy and respect you guys. I'm just trying here to share, share what I've learned. And Javier, I'll end with your question because I think it's a great one to end on. So, is there a legacy that you want to leave after you're gone? And um, the interesting thing about that is here. Let me read the other questions. Yeah, I'm not going to take the question about Loy, but I'm going to end on the question from Javier about the legacy that I want to leave. So when I started on Quora, I was looking for a Wikipedia answer, and I ended up on this site called Quora that wasn't what I expected and wasn't really even the right answer I was looking for. And then the comments were kind of abusing the person that gave the wrong answer, and there were a few other people that gave the right answer, and one of those was David Rose. And so I was like, okay, well, that's awesome. I mean, David Rose is on here. And I was like, man, what a great site that has really influential people providing really authoritative answers. And I had worked with the AngelSoft software and then Gust, which is what it got changed to. And David Rose was a huge inspiration for one of the projects that I worked on in Colorado. That unfortunately, one of the founders ended up murdering his wife and then killing himself in a murder suicide. So that kind of put a damper on building a rival solution to Gust. But I had a lot of respect for David Rose, and uh, the funny thing was is that I left a few comments and I made a profile and things like that when I got on in December of 2016, and then I, I was home taking care of my wife. She was having multiple surgeries with 3 months of recovery between each surgery. So, she was going to be, uh, out of circulation from December of 2016 until April of 2017. So I really had like 5 or 6 months with like nothing to do. And so I got hooked on Quora. And I started answering questions and started making comments, and I really enjoyed the dynamic of it. And then one day, as I started to gain more popularity, about a month or so in, and my answers were becoming really popular, and people were giving me really positive feedback and things like that. Um, you know, I had this sort of evil grin came over my face, and I was like, you know what, what would be great is if Quora ended up beating out Wikipedia as the source for authoritative content in the future. And since I have 3 kids, and they never ask me any questions. If they need anything, they search it up on YouTube or whatever. And so it's like, what if I answer enough questions to where eventually my kids and grandkids decide they want to search for something, and my answer is the authoritative answer to just about any question they'd ever have. And so my journey on Quora really started as sort of a really kind of back end opportunity to connect with my kids and eventually my grandchildren, who don't want my advice. They're not asking my advice on something. So it's hilarious because I love it. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. And it's been great because my kids follow me on Quora and things like that. They see most of my posts, and so it's been a great opportunity to address some issues that I think are worth having them have my perspective on that they probably would never ask me for. But and I never really thought about it, the fact that it might help millions of other people. Having now over 258,000 followers on my space, the Truth Unfiltered on Quora. Only 147,000 regular profile followers, but 258,000 followers on my space, The Truth Unfiltered. And But yeah, I mean, it's been great. I love it. And it's great connecting with you guys in these question and answer sessions. The fact that there are a number of people that will either put this on read and listen to it in the background or things like that, and when I posted my first hour long video, and it was viewed for like 15,000 minutes. And I was like, God, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it's just amazing how much time you guys are willing to invest in the content that I've been putting out there, answering questions and stuff like that. So, congratulations. I mean, you guys are really amazing, and I respect the hell out of everybody, and I appreciate it. But thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you guys want to suggest comments, connect with me on LinkedIn. Certainly, you can do that, and join my professional network on LinkedIn. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'll be advertising the times that I'm going to be, or publicizing the times that I'm going to go live on YouTube Live and on Instagram. And if you, as some people have done, when the Instagram live thing cuts off at an hour, we're now 20 minutes beyond that hour. So there's actually more content over here on YouTube Live for longer. And it takes, half a day to upload, but, it takes a while to upload, but it'll upload eventually. And I really want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. You guys have been terrific. And I look forward to going live. I think our schedule is going to be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I usually do 5 to 6 o'clock. I have some stuff that I had to do this afternoon, so I went ahead and went live a little earlier. And look forward to comments on which time slot works best for you. In the community tab in YouTube, you can vote on which time if you want. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. All right. Bye-bye.